Savvy Central Radio, drawing out the best from our guests with your host, Christina Nitchman.
This is your host, Christina Nitchman. Each week, Savvy runs weekly broadcasts providing entrepreneurs and successful individuals a platform to express their dreams, hopes, lessons learned, expertise, and wisdom with the world. Our first guest today is Rob Zarrilli of Zarrilli Training and Consulting. Rob has spoken to corporate audiences across the nation and has created the Leadership Institute, a nationally recognized university-style training program used at state, regional, and national sales and leadership conferences. Today, Rob shares with us how to build meaningful relationships. Find out more about Rob at AskRobZ.com. Our second guest today is Dr. Janice Fletcher. She integrates her vast educational experience with her spiritual passion, bringing a unique process which results in constant owl moments. Today, Janice reveals the necessary steps for getting in touch with your inner wisdom. Find out more about Janice at JaniceFletcher.com. Hi, Rob. Welcome to Savvy Central Radio. How are you today?
I'm great, thank you, Christina, and thank you for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to be a part of your show.
Oh, you betcha. You're doing amazing work out there helping entrepreneurs, and we're going to touch on a whole bunch of really important topics today, from building strong relationships through effective communications, how to overcome adversities in your business, and one of my personal favorites that we're going to touch on, attitude, how attitude, the proper attitude, can really help you grow towards success. But before we go to any of this, share with the audience a little bit about your background and what brought you to the world of entrepreneurship.
Well, I'd be happy to. Well, first of all, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. This is a 30-minute show, so usually it takes me about that long to introduce myself. I joke a lot with folks. English as a second language when you grow up in Brooklyn, that is true. I joke and say to people that I speak 3 languages fluently. Brooklyn, New Jersey, and Long Island. So with that being said, graduated from St. John's University, quickly went into the business world, began a stint with a publishing company, and knew right away I wanted to make something of myself, and became a top salesperson, aspired to be successful, drove myself through the fear of failing, as many people do that are listening to your program. Quickly became a top salesperson for a particular company in New York City 2 times over. Now, I was certainly happy about that and thrilled about that, and I never forget receiving the award that the company gave out at a very large conference. In this particular case, back-to-back in Acapulco and Hawaii. However, it wasn't, Christina, until I trained and developed and was part of giving an individual affection, correction, and direction to be successful, and they received the very honor that I did, a top salesman honor, and they got up and thanked me for for my support. I knew pretty much right there that I got more joy, and it sounds Pollyanna, and forgive me for sounding a little canned here, but I got more joy out of helping someone else succeed than I got from being successful myself. And it was a springboard for bigger and better things. I started my own company in New York, a publishing company. However, I was going through a rough spot in my personal life. I needed to be closer to Florida. My son, who was about 18 months old, was living in Florida with my soon-to-be ex-wife. And every weekend I would be on a plane and I would go down to Florida to be with him, to spend weekends with him. And I began my career in Florida. I went to work for the Flyer magazine, a local company in Tampa, Florida, and climbed the ranks from running a call center to executive VP to eventually being the general manager and partner of the organization here in the Tampa Bay area. In 2009, as many of us experienced downsizing, I was part of that downsizing. and decided at that point to start my own organization. That's when Zarrilli Training and Consulting began. And I haven't looked back, and it's been a very rewarding, honestly, a very rewarding and fulfilling opportunity to help others, both in sales, marketing, leadership, personal growth, and development.
Yeah. And what I'm gaining from you here, when you spoke earlier about how much it's been rewarding for you helping people, I gathered it also helped you learn better these topics yourself. Because I know for me, several years back, I was taking dance, and then my teacher put me in charge when he left to teach the class. And wow, did I learn tenfold when I was able to help others learn my knowledge. It helped me learn it even deeper. Was that the case for you as well?
Oh, absolutely. Great point, by the way. And every day companies are promoting their top salesperson, their top performer, their top dancer, and trying to put them in leadership positions. And that's good for me because those folks fail all the time because they haven't been trained to be leaders unless they're passionate like yourself, unless they really care about others. To train and teach others, something that I became very passionate about some time ago, is something that is, you have to be very unselfish, you have to be very giving, and you have to care, you really do, to teach and train others.
Yeah.
And you learn along the way. I said recently on a show, and I spoke to Duke Energy, a large company here in the Southeast, and I told them that one of the things that has helped me is trial by error, failing. John Maxwell's book, Failing Forward, is one of my, I enjoy that book because it's about failing. It's about learning from your failures, and leadership and training and teaching others. It's a trial by error. And growing up in the streets of Brooklyn, I did a lot of that as a youngster in Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah, yeah. And what I found for me is when you're teaching some sort of concept and the student isn't grasping it, it's like, okay, now how do I need to say this in a way that they can get it? Because people learn differently. Maybe it's through sight, maybe it's auditorily, maybe it's kinetically. But I found that by trying to see what angle they understood the information at, I learned it deeper and got the information more ingrained into myself. Now, this brings to mind for me, because a lot of people listening in are business owners, and one of the top things we get asked is about sales. And one thing that's missed when it comes to getting sales is how important is building relationships to it. Effective relationships that will, real relationships, not going somewhere and just passing out business cards and saying, oh yeah, please buy my stuff. Explain a little bit about how we can build deeper relationships through effective communication.
Well, I want to, if you don't mind, Christina, I want to go back just a second. You said something that triggered something. You were talking about transferring skills and being in a class. And one of the most motivating things for me was sitting in an audience or sitting in a classroom and having a teacher who was boring or monologue or didn't know how to share concepts. Yeah. And one of the things really training and consulting me individually, what I do when I do keynote speeches, when I train or consult, is I try to create simple, easy to understand concepts and ideas that people can apply immediately. You sit in these workshops, in these classrooms, and you sit there for 3 hours, and after 20 minutes you glaze over and you go, what's the point?
It's like information overload. It's like, exactly. How does this apply to anything? Yeah.
Exactly. So getting back to your question, look, it's real simple. Life is all about building meaningful relationships. 85% of all of our happiness personally and our success professionally is the result of meaningful relationships. If relationships are important to you in your personal and professional life, there is one thing you need to do is to become an effective communicator. However, too many people think communication is a form of speaking when really, as Gary Chapman teaches you in the 5 love languages, Communication is a love language, and it's about listening. It's about giving the people you care about your time and your attention. You know, I've been in many circumstances where you're in a room full of people, and there's always that one person that's talking to you and talking to you and talking to you, and he's trying to impress upon you how smart he is and that he's the smartest person in the room. And it's that person who walks up to you and begins to ask you questions and begins to listen to the answers and then ask you follow-up questions and shows you he or she cares about the answers. That person, Christina, makes you feel like the most important and the most intelligent person in the room. That, to me, builds rapport and builds relationships. Salespeople all over the country miss the most important aspect of selling. And it is listening, because communication is the key to building relationships. However, listening is the key to communication. And listening, and please jump in here anytime if I'm on, but I get very passionate about this and I get very energized about this, because listening is not shutting up so that you can wait for your turn to talk. Listening is not, figuring out the rebuttal to the person's argument. Yeah. I created a definition for listening, and your listeners, hopefully, they can share with others, and that is to be completely committed to hearing the speaker's message before formulating a response. Not easy to do, by the way.
Yeah.
Very difficult.
So true, Rob. And I learned this listening skill bit by bit. I'm still learning. I would never say I've reached the pinnacle of all understanding in that area. But when I first started doing my business and also this podcast, I used to step all over my guests in the beginning, and my boyfriend would listen in and say, "Will you stop that? Will you just listen to your guests and let them finish their thought before you start talking?" And it was because I was scared of sounding stupid and not being able to know what to say when they finished, that my mind would be going 300 miles an hour going, oh, I have to have an answer formulated. Oh my gosh. And I found that when I just cleared my mind and really focused on what the other person was saying and engaged, like you are with a girlfriend at a coffee shop, that I would have an answer naturally. I wouldn't have to think about it. I would just, when they stopped talking, I'd be like, okay, here's my input on that. And it became a natural flow of conversation back and forth. And now that's what's helped our podcast become popular and successful, is that real, true sharing of each other, both of us sharing the platform together.
So true. However, you have to be unselfish to be a good listener.
Yes.
Because as you just spoke, it took me a conscientious effort to be completely committed to being in your frame of mind and feel what you're feeling and think what you're feeling. And there's a reason, Christina, why people are not good at that. And the reason is because we can listen at about 125 words a minute. However, we can think at about 1,000 words a minute.
Whoa.
So as you're speaking to me, I'm absorbing your 125 words a minute. However, my mind has plenty of space to wander and go elsewhere. I have a great acronym. The acronym is LADDER. By the way, I'm an acronym freak. And that's, again, goes back to that simple and easy way to learn and apply things. I have a simple acronym. It's LADDER. We don't have the time today to go into too much detail.
Yeah.
But some of the things that I teach in that acronym are so simple and so easy to follow. And some of it has to do with don't interrupt. The D's in the word ladder. First of all, physiology is so critical. Today we're talking and we're not together in a studio. So I'm looking at a little black cube, which is my speaker. So we're not able to, our physiology is certainly not on display here. However, physiology is so important when I'm speaking to an audience, how you interact and how you tune in. The other thing is asking questions. And it's not hear and speak. Hearing is not listening. It's Charlie Brown, wah, 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 wah. We hear things all the time. When you listen on purpose. So there are a lot of reasons why we're poor listeners. You said it best a few seconds ago.
Yeah.
When you said your boyfriend said you listen to your interviews. Well, the same reason why when we shake someone's hand when we introduce ourselves, we walk away 3 seconds later and say these words. What was his name again? We do that all the time, right? We shake somebody's hand. We're too worried about ourselves. How do I look?
Yeah, exactly.
Do I have a good handshake? How's my hair look? Did he like me? Did I make a good impression? Oh, by the way, it's not about me. It's more about him.
Yeah. And you mentioned how important is the visual component. We're not always face-to-face. Can tonality help with that? I mean, since most of the salespeople around the nation probably have to do most of their sales calls not in person, but the way we're doing this phone call interview, can tonality help you connect to another person?
Oh, absolutely. Great point, by the way. The tonality. I draw circles on a board many times. I'm a very visual person. So if you saw me right now, my hands are flailing everywhere. I'm an Italian from New York City, so you can appreciate that. So my hands are moving a mile a minute, and so I'm very visual. However, your tone in the sales environment is critical. So I draw 2 circles on the board many times, and I say concentrate on these 2 knobs. One is a volume knob. The other is a speed knob. Too often we are not connected to people because we're not in sync, right? Communication, by the way, comes from a Latin word communis, which means commonality. Okay, so not to get too deep here, but commonality, right? In sync, right? Not that the boy group from 15 years ago. It's more about being in sync with your partner or the person you're having a conversation with. So that part of it, to be totally in sync with somebody, takes certain tone, certain inflection. So I talk about someone answers the phone and they say, "Hi, how are you?" You have to listen to one, their volume, and 2, the speed in which they speak, because you have to get in sync with that person. Tony Robbins many years ago taught us about NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. Basically what it was is to be in sync with somebody. You've heard that term mirroring and matching. I have a funny story. I had a partner who went to a Tony Robbins workshop, and he came back and I put my hand on my cheek and folded my arms at my waist, and he started following all those things I was doing. And I said, "You're trying to match and mirror me." He goes, "Yeah, I just came back from a workshop." And that's overdoing it. The real way to be in sync with someone is to match their tone, to match the speed in which they speak. I'm doing it with you today a little bit. However, I'm really speaking to your audience. And if I sat here, Christina, and I talked all the time at this one level and began to talk to you at this low pace, I would probably lose half your audience. And if I talked really loud and really fast, New Yorkers and the Philadelphians probably would stay tuned in, but possibly the folks that are on vacation or retired might not. So, very important.
Wow. Well, I never really thought of that. Now, I have heard of people who have studied NLP tell me how important it is to mimic or, as you say, mirror other people. And I've seen people try to do it with me. And as you were mentioning to your friend, it feels a little forced and fake because you feel like they're putting it on. Like I'm sitting here with my arms crossed and you cross your arms, unless they do it in a very subtle way. But it makes sense to me that the way you're saying is that you're really, in essence, becoming in sync with me and my energy.
Absolutely. Perfect. If you don't mind, I'll probably use that in a workshop or a podcast or down the road, to be in sync with your energy. I love that. It's key. It's critical. I have to be in sync with your energy. But you know that word energy too?
Yeah.
I have to have energy. Let's forget about being in sync. Energy in the sales and marketing and leadership world is so key and critical. I talk about the threes: energy, enthusiasm, excitement. Ralph Waldo Emerson, nothing great ever happened in this world without enthusiasm. And too often sales professionals, leaders don't realize how important that is.
And I don't know about you, because I've worked in certain huge corporations where I've seen the sales department on sales calls, and they have this kind of forced enthusiasm and cheeriness, but it feels like they're putting it on. And I think the key is you have to come from, I'm really feeling this, not that I'm actually pouring it on quickly.
Well, yeah, a great point. The feeling comes from a genuine place of curiosity. I talk to salespeople all over the country, and what I tell them all the time is you need a sense of curiosity. You have to care and have empathy. There's so many ingredients that, whether it's a salesperson, a leadership individual, there are certain keys to being great leaders. Recently, I did a workshop on leadership, and I was asked to do a keynote on leadership. And I said, how about I do a keynote on why we follow great leaders? And then he said, well, I'm not sure what's the difference. I said, the difference is I'm taking it from the point of view of the follower, not the leader. I follow leaders who are respectful. I follow leaders who care about me, who are invested. And I have to tell you that from a point of view, you have to be honest. You have to have integrity. You have to have character. So I created the workshop from a point of view of, why would I follow you? I'll follow you if you're knowledgeable. I'll follow you if you're respectful. I'll follow you if you want to teach me to be better. So those are key things. But again, a lot of my workshops, I try to, going back to what we talked about, make them easy to understand and apply. Knowledge is pretty useless.
Yeah.
And I'll finish my thought here. Last year, just about a year ago, I was speaking at a very large conference in Savannah, Georgia. And the conference was ending, and the group asked me to close the conference. And I got up on stage. They said, you got 5 minutes. Give us something to walk away with. And I walked up on stage and I said, well, you unfortunately wasted 3.5 days sitting here going through these classes and these workshops and these breakout sessions, unless, of course, you apply the knowledge you learned. See, we go to these workshops, we go to these classes, we listen, we write notes, and then we get back to our office and we throw it in the bottom right-hand drawer, and we go back to putting out fires and dealing with problems, and we just don't apply the knowledge we learn.
That intrigued me. Why is that so for most people?
Well, I'll tell you why it is so. It's so because a lot of the teachers, or a lot of the classrooms we sit through, they don't reach in and grab us and energize us and give us the why. Okay, so I'm so glad and we haven't spoken before today to plan this. So you asked the question that led me to one of my most powerful keynotes that I love to talk about, and that's the why. See, many people don't embrace what they learn or apply what they learn because they don't have a why in their life. Your why determines your how. And what I mean by that is without a purpose, without something driving you every day, you're never going to be successful, and you're never going to get where you want to go. It's the same thing with goals. The Alice in Wonderland, remember, I don't know if you have children, but Alice in Wonderland said, to the Cheshire Cat, which road should I take? And the cat said, well, that depends on where you're trying to get to. And Alice said, I don't really know. And the cat said, well, then any road will do. You see, without your why driving you, the Wright brothers are a great example of that. Why did the Wright brothers invent the airplane? Your partner is a pilot. They had no money, they had no education, and they had no support, while others had all of that and then some. The Wright brothers had a why. They had a purpose. They wanted to change the world, and they were invested in a purpose. It's kind of like you have 8 people in a boat rowing, and they're rowing pretty darn well, but then you put on swimming caps, and on the side it says breast cancer. And now they're rowing for a purpose. Now they're rowing for a bigger purpose. The bigger your why in life, the better you become. Oprah Winfrey did a show, and one of a twin actually, needed to give the kidney to donate a kidney to his sibling. He was terribly overweight. He needed to lose 80 pounds in like a short period of time, and he did it. Donated the kidney, and it was a great ending to what could have been a bad story. And the sibling said, well, I had a big why. There was a purpose. So the first thing I do is I tell people, you gotta figure out why you're here today. Why are you listening? Why are the people that are tuned into your show right now, your podcast right now, why are they tuning in? They want to get better. Yeah. They want to improve. They want to grow, and they want to move forward. That's a big enough why, and that's when the how gets figured out.
Wow, that is so powerful. I mean, when I started my first business, financial consulting business, it wasn't my super passion. I did it in corporate America. I was good at it. And my ex-boss said, hey, I think you can make some pretty good cash if you turned it into a consulting business. And he was wrong. It didn't turn into super cash in the beginning. But the bigger problem was there was no why or purpose behind it. I didn't really care about it. It was just something I did in corporate, and now I'm just going to do it technically as a freelancer. But it wasn't until I met my mentor who set me on the road and said, what is your greatest passion in life? Like, if you could do it every day and you didn't get paid for it, what would it be? And I had forgotten completely what brought me joy or passion or purpose in my life. I totally become disconnected from myself. Through a lot of reflection, asking friends what they saw me doing, I came across starting this podcast. Initially, as I told you, for a marketing tool for my financial consulting business. But what happened in the process was I did find my greatest why and passion, which is savvy. And what I love about podcasts is, as you just mentioned, we all connect as a community to help each other grow towards success. It's not just I have all the answers or you have all the answers. It's all of us together as a community bringing all of our wisdom to the table.
Collaboration is what drives you. See, helping others drives you.
Yep.
And it's very powerful. It's purpose is a goal on steroids. You could have a goal, you could have it committed to writing, but when you give it a purpose, I show a great clip in training, Christina, and share it with your audience. I will now, but it's a clip from the movie We Are Marshall. And there's a great scene in that clip where Matthew McConaughey is being interviewed for a job that no one wants. It is the worst job. It is the job of being the coach of a football team that just recently 75 football players, coaches, crashed, and you're probably familiar with the story.
Mm-hmm.
And the entire team perishes in an airplane crash. And Matthew McConaughey, the soon-to-be coach, is being interviewed, and the president of the university says, "I'm curious, why would you want this job?" And he looks out at his wife and he looks out at his children, and he says, when I heard about the crash, I thought about a school, I thought about students, I thought about community, I thought about what it would feel like if I was part of that. And then I looked out at my wife and children and said, if anything ever happened to them, what could I do to help? And the why, his why is he wanted to be part of helping that community. And it drove him. It was a driving force. And that's your driving force, to help others. And that's what Savvy Radio does.
Well, thank you. Absolutely. And we all do it together as a community, and that's what's so totally awesome.
Yeah.
But I want people to find out where they can check out your wonderful broadcasts, your classes, your courses, and if you're live somewhere where they can come check you out.
Well, I will actually be in San Diego at the end of April, and I do speak and do keynotes throughout the country. However, my website, my URL, my website is Zarrilli Training and Consulting, but I made it really easy for people to find me. So you can go to askrobz.com. 7 letters, ASKROBZ like zebra, Zarrilli, that's my last name, .com, askrobz.com. I have a wealth of information on my website, and hopefully it came through to your audience. I care an awful lot about what I do. I want to make an impact and help others. And when I do speak and when I do train, it's all about, sharing ideas and concepts that can be applied immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. I can totally feel that. I mean, you've done it today here with the audience. And I even your website screams service, because it's Ask Rob Z. It's about asking me a question, or, so it's about coming from a mindset of service.
Well, thank you for that. And yes, absolutely. And I've been blessed to be in an industry where now it's about, I did it for me for a lot of years, and now I'm doing it as a give back, and I enjoy it. And it, family and helping others, those are my 2 passions in life.
It's such a great way to end our broadcast, and one thing I found for myself when I first started my financial consulting business, and even back in corporate, is I was so focused on the end result of quote unquote what we think success is. We have this idea that success will mean millions of dollars in the bank, or, VIP executive, or, whatever it might be. Your business is bringing in $1 million. But at the end of the day, it's what impact am I making that is making me have that big why, that big excitement to jump out of bed in the day? And there are a heck of a lot of rich people out there, or VPs of executives of businesses, corporations, who are unhappy. And you don't have to be. There is another way that if you combine and cause a collaborative effort with other people and make it not about yourself, that you can all have a fabulous life together, living our gifts and talents in the world.
Absolutely. I so agree, and it works. It really does. And I know we ran short of time and we didn't cover a few other things that we had planned on it, but hopefully we could do it another time.
You betcha. We want you back. It's been awesome, Rob. Everyone, please go to AskRobZ.com and find out more about Rob and his wonderful business. And thank you again, Rob, for coming to Savvy Central Radio and sharing your gifts and talents today.
Christina, it was a real pleasure. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye now.
Now here's our interview with Dr. Janice Fletcher. Hi, Janice. Welcome to Savvy Central Radio. How are you this morning?
I'm very well. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to share my information with your audience.
You betcha. And actually, it just turned afternoon, so happy afternoon. But it's such a great honor to have you today. You're a doctor of education. You've done amazing work out there, but you've had a tremendous journey that has brought you to the point of helping people find their inner wisdom. And you had really deployed and focused on your rational mind for many years, and then came into effect of getting in touch with your inner wisdom. So before we go on to go in deeper into all of that, share with the audience a little bit about your backstory and how you became an educator and then connecting later on with your greater wisdom.
It is the story of my life, basically, which is interesting because I began sort of as a confused teenager trying to figure out what to do with my life, and then found my spiritual path that I wanted to follow, or the spiritual essence of that I wanted to live my life by. Mm-hmm. And with that then came a desire for me to serve in some way. I wanted to, do whatever I could do in the world, but at the same time serve it and make it a better place. And then that turned me to education. And as I moved into education, I moved, through the ranks of a teacher and all of that, all the way up to whatever, and was principal of a couple of schools. And during that whole experience, I was still seeking and following my spiritual path, but I was quite confined within that arena of being able to explore and speak out and so on. So once I got beyond that, I was able to do and say what I wanted to say, then the two parts of me merged and integrated into the two books that I've now written, Wisdom from the Inner Teacher and Teach with Spirit, both of which then tell us that how to integrate those two parts of us, or the two parts of our brain. So that's in essence how it all came about.
Wow. This really brings to mind for me, I spoke recently to a teacher who's actually working in the public school system in New York and really kind of frustrated because of, you talked about being in the system. She said, I want to explore and bring the kids to a deeper level on some subjects, and we're really kind of stuck into the curriculum. For any teachers beside my friends who might listen in, what advice would you have to teachers out there to getting more in touch with their wisdom and bringing that to the students?
Well, the essence of the second book, which is called Teach with Spirit, speaks to that exactly. And that was derived from that exact scenario, is that teachers are burning out, they're leaving, they're not finding fulfillment. And how can they serve in this wonderful, beautiful way that we need, but still be fulfilled? And again, it comes back to self, which is the essence of both books, how to reach in and connect to spirit, connect to whatever, each one of us defines as spirit. Some think it's nature, some think it's, whatever religion, spiritual belief, whatever it is, whatever that is for the person, how they connect to that, and then come from that point. Because the book could actually be entitled Live with Spirit, rather than Teach with Spirit, because I'm an educator, I used my experience and the stories and examples of education, but it really is for all. Just as the same with Wisdom from the Inner Teacher, the 6-step process of how that happens to everybody everywhere.
Yeah.
No matter who or what, whatever human there is, it has to be a human, but other than that, versus an animal.
Yeah.
But the process is the same, so.
That's fascinating to me. And I'm guessing that your book can be reflected and also used depending, no matter what system you're in, getting in touch with yourself, regardless of what curriculum or what school system you're in. You can, first getting in touch with yourself first and building your own intuition and spirit, then you can learn how to really touch the kid and work within the curriculum and whatever guidelines you have, correct?
Yeah, well, there's two parts of it. Okay. One is being able to come and live and work from a point of being fulfilled or being filled with spirit, being guided by that intuition, by that inner teacher. So as we do that, then everything that we do, whether it's at work or raking the leaves, becomes more meaningful, and we're living more in present moment. There's a whole chapter on mindfulness and so on. And no matter where we are or what we're doing, we are then being fulfilled, and we're living in the moment, and then we're having our attitude or our self connected to spirit and earth at the same time. The second thing for the educator, which is not just for the educator, it's for all of us, again, is the 6-step process of the aha moment. And when a teacher discovers that for themselves, then that naturally transfers to the student. Because in the educational process, we have, as you mentioned, a lot of curriculum and policies and behaviors and expectations and tests and blah, blah, blah. And the essence, the real purpose of what a teacher is supposed to be doing is finding that learning moment, that moment where the student goes, got it, aha, that's the answer. That's what it's all about. And everything else leads to that. So the aha moment in the 6-step process brings us all to that. Now, for the entrepreneur, the audience that you have, it's the same thing. How do we know when we have the right product, when we have the right process, when we have the right avenue that we should be doing? It's getting to know that. It's getting to know thyself, as Socrates said. And then once we tune into that and we're living through that, then we're living with truth and wisdom coming into us and guiding us so that we're not making wrong answers.
Wow.
So that we're only living in truth, and then life becomes a flow and easy and fulfilled.
Wow. You know what this brings to mind for me? Many, many, many moons ago, I was studying and learning dance, and I had a teacher who was trying to teach me how to pull up from my core and to use my core and to, have my chest and my back and whatever. And she kept trying to describe it in words and show me in her own body. And I wasn't getting it for months. I kept going to classes and she kept telling me, pull up. And I kept looking at her like she kept describing a string coming from my head and da-da-da. And it wasn't working until one day I did something in my body and she said, that's it. What does that feel like? Feel it. And when she did that, it was like an awareness came into me and bam, I had it. I never had to be told again what it, all these descriptions or whatever. My body had awareness of it. And from that point on, I got it.
Well, that's it exactly. And so that's what we want to do is recognize when we're going through the 6 steps of the aha moment, recognizing when we're getting into our alpha states and having the experience of it, because it's about the left and the right brain as well. So, the 6-step process starts with a desire. For your entrepreneurs, it's what business should I go start? Is this the correct business? Whatever the question is, it is a desire, and you're trying to find an answer. You're trying to solve a problem. And so what happens then is our left brain goes into the mode of trying to figure it out, just like you were. You were in your left brain when you were trying to dance without your body. You were in your head rather than your body.
Yeah.
And you were trying to dance, and you couldn't get it. And so the same thing happens with entrepreneurs. We're figuring it out. And there comes a point, somehow, some way, when we go to the second step, and the second step is, I give up. I don't know.
Yes, surrender. Yes, the letting go of, I don't get this. I don't get it. I'm going to let it go, but let it go not from a point of I'm giving up, but, just acknowledging to yourself that my left brain, my thinking, rational brain doesn't get it. And letting that go.
Right.
And that it?
Yes, that's exactly it. And then what happens in that letting go, and you may be actually, it is a form of surrender as I see it, because you can look at this through the lens of the neuroscience, the left brain and the right brain, the biology of it. You can also look at it from a mind thing, or whatever. You can also look at it from a spiritual sense, is that you are letting go. And you are actually looking or seeking or admitting that the answer is somewhere else. The answer is not where I'm looking. I don't know where the answer is or who has the answer or how the answer is going to come to me, but I surrender that I don't have it right there in my left brain. And so that is a form of surrender where you give up. And then what happens is somewhere along the line, you'll end up in an alpha state. And an alpha state is a dreamlike state where your left brain is not engaged and your right brain is open up to the wisdom. And so the insights and truth can come in. And so somewhere in your dance process that happened where you sort of got in the flow of it, where you weren't thinking about it anymore. You got into the movement of it. Yeah. And so that next step is that we still the mind. So you can still the mind intentionally through meditation, prayer, whatever, or all of us go to our zone, to our zen, whatever we want to call it, whether it's in the shower or where our answers come in. And so I ask the teachers or everyone to pay attention. Be attentive, raise your consciousness, be aware, and get to know thyself again. And that is, where is it that I experience my alpha state? Well, it's when I'm rowing the boat, or when I'm in the shower. It's I have an epilogue in the first book of my, that I got up at 3:00 in the morning and wrote 3 pages, and it was like, where did that come from? And I had to experience the message of the book. I gave it to my writer husband, and he said, it's perfect. He's a really strict editor. And it was like, I never write perfectly. Right? Where did that come from? And it was because Janice was still asleep. I got up in the moment I wrote these pages, and I was flowing through my right brain. So the whole process is then for us to know when and how we are getting into an alpha state. We can actually put the conditions in place for an alpha state to be, but we can't demand the answer to come through. They can't say I'm going to go for a walk or I'm going to go to sleep or whatever, because Einstein refers to the left brain as a faithful servant. It's like a computer, right?
Yeah.
We put things in, we get things out. The right brain, however, is a whole different thing. He calls it a sacred gift. And if we believe Einstein, and if we believe his adjective of sacred and a gift, gifts are not, they come when they come. Right? They say we can't demand a gift. It's going to be given to us whenever. And if we believe that it is sacred, then we should know that it is truth or wisdom or whatever you want to call it, insight. And that's intuition. And if you do believe that, you can test it this way. Because all of us have had aha moments.
Yes.
And all of us have said to ourselves, I knew I shouldn't have done that. I knew I shouldn't have said that. I knew I shouldn't have gone there. Have you done that ever?
Oh my gosh, yes. And you know what? You've gotten the clue when you were doing it. There are times where, there's a partnership I took on in my business last year, and the moment we shook on it, I felt inside, oh no, this is very bad, very, very bad. Why? I couldn't rationally say why it was a bad idea, but my gut was telling me run the opposite direction.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. And
it proved itself to be true.
Exactly.
Because when we have those moments that I knew I shouldn't have done that, how did we know that? Okay, however it is that we knew that is the truth of this. That is the right brain coming through. That means that it is truth. The other thing that happens is when we have an aha moment, all of a sudden it's like, wow, that's the partner I should have had. Wow, that's what it feels like to do that dance with the core thing. That's where I should have my business. You never second guess it. You never say, oh yeah, now I need to go research that. You just know.
You do it. You know it. And this brings to mind for me, Janice, I'm now the 4th year into my business, and it's been rocky, up and down, left and right, going through my business. And now I see things, learning processes and experiences I've had that have been tremendous, but also a lot of turmoil and stress, a lot of it by me trying to put standards and expectations of what I think my business should be or at or whatever, that has put the greatest stress on me. And looking back, I said there's other things and opportunities that could have come through quicker and more easily and flowed more had I not put up the resistance and expectations of what I think things should be.
Yes. When we become the expert, right?
Yes.
Then that's wonderful because we really know, and you're the expert because you own the business and you know what you want. However, what limits us with being the expert is that we know it all, which means there's no room for anything else. And we've closed off all other possibilities. So I'm a yoga teacher as well, and I teach people to be flexible not only in their body but their mind. So what we do is when these answers come in, they may be crazy answers. They may be like, do that in 2 years. They may be like, I can't do that. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
That's like crazy. I'm not doing that. But if we go back to listening when we were wrong, or I knew I should have done that and I did it and it worked, knowing, allowing ourselves to trust that inner wisdom of the inner teacher that's coming through, then we have to test it out and try what the answer is, even though it's crazy, and then see, and somewhere along the line, the final step of the 6-step process is that you can test it. It will show itself to be true. You will find that in fact, that the answer was. So it is desire, surrender, still the mind, and then, of course, listen to the answer that you get or the insight or the wisdom, and then act on it. Because oftentimes we hear it, but we don't act. And then once we act, then we can see that it's all come to fruition. Now, everybody that's just listened to this process has now got it, and there is an awareness within them that has elevated. Okay, they have raised their consciousness, and just like when we, buy a red Volkswagen, we see red Volkswagens everywhere. Now we will be aware of these aha moments, and when we get one, this is the challenge to the teachers or anybody that wants to build their intuition and know about and listen to the inner teacher. The process happens that when we get, like when you got that gut feeling that you should have, not done that business deal, when you were shaking your hand and going, what the heck am I doing? Yeah. That is when you can go back and you can say, I want everybody to do an autopsy and say, now I'm at the point where the insight's coming in. When was it that it started? When the desire, the problem, whatever? Because you can go back and you can say, that's when I began figuring it out. And then you finally said, I give up. I'm just going to go with this partner. I have reservations, but I'm going to do it anyway. Right? So there was a giving up. And then the listening, and then there was this alpha state somehow that happened within you, and you can go back and you can see the steps. And then this is the educator in me, then as we do that, then we're reinforcing the pattern. And between our left and right brain, which is the corpus callosum nerve, we have like a little rickety road, and this helps it become a superhighway, because we need both left and right brain to function properly and to function optimally, which is my word, optimal wisdom learning.
Yes.
And so then we have the superhighway between, and we can flip back and forth very easily. And so all it comes down to, you don't even have to buy my book, although I may enjoy it, that you've gotten all the information. All you have to do is become aware of what is going on with your thought process and when the answers are coming in.
Yeah.
That's it. It's really simple, because truth is always free and truth is always simple. Okay, it's never complicated. You don't have to be an intellectual. In fact, it's the opposite. The less intellectual you are, the more you'll get it. Right?
Wow. Yeah.
So,
yeah. And now looking back at that partnership, we're still friends, and it's been a great gift going through the process, because we realized how the idea we had was not going to work, but now it's allowed us both to grow in ways that we wouldn't have fathomed before had we not gone through the process and been open to seeing what about it could we learn from the experience. Yeah, so I love that, and I love the idea that also you can continually, go within and see, okay, why didn't this work? What can I learn? Do an autopsy, as you said, and say, okay, what about it? Wasn't it working? And when did I get the kind of clues that this wasn't going to work, or what were going to work, or whatever? And you mentioned something else. You mentioned that there will be times where you will get something to do, or this is what you need to do, and you'll be like, no. And you mentioned something that sometimes the direction you get from spirit can sound totally loopy and out there, and I'm totally with you on this, because I've gotten that hit last year in Christmas time. I was praying and meditating and saying, okay, what's the next step in my business? And what I got back made no sense to me. But I decided at this point that, whenever I follow spirit, wonderful, amazing things happen. So I'm going to do it anyway. And it was right. It came to fruition to be pretty darn amazing. But it's that, I guess, also having the faith to know that it's going to be okay, regardless of what's coming through to you. If it sounds totally wacky or like, left brain wise, this is insane, I shouldn't do this, that just to go in faith and realize, it will work out.
Well, you mentioned faith, but it's beyond that, because it is experiential. And that's why I bring people back to their past aha moments, because this has been happening within our being as soon as we can remember, right? So we've had these knowings and these experiences. All we're doing right now is bringing awareness to it. So all we're doing is turning on a light to see how the process of how it happens, because there's a number of different ways that we get in alpha state. Some people literally have to have the pencil by the beds when they wake up at 2 a.m. They can write it down. Some people are driving, whatever, and they get in the zone that way. Some people are doing their sport, whatever it is. However, some people have multiple ways. And the goal is to be so tuned in, so aware of self, and so aware of our thought process and our being, our body, mind, body, spirit, that it's all aligned. We're using all the cylinders that have been given to us, not just living outside of our body, but energetically being able to do that dance, because we can feel our core, because we can feel our being. We can feel the answers so that we get that gut level, and so that we know. And then, so that's why it's more than faith, because it's experiencing it. You can feel and know that it is right or wrong. The simple muscle tests that, people are so aware of, the kinesthetic, yes or no, is this good or bad? Where does that come from? That comes from our inner being telling us yes or no. So all it is an awareness of using what's already been given to us in this rental unit, this body, this, temple of the Lord, however you want to refer to it. It gives us everything, and so we just need to be aware of it, and then always be grateful and always be honoring.
Yeah. So in essence, it's just the bottom line keyword is awareness and knowing. It's just an absolute knowing and awareness within yourself.
Yes, but it's constant. It's not. It's like it's a lifestyle. No. Right? I mean, it literally is a lifestyle, because you're living life a different way, because you're not just saying things, you're paying attention to what you're saying, you're paying attention to what you're doing, you're paying attention to the effect of your words and the effect of your actions. So you're doing a sort of a self-study all the time. You're being the observer of self And the more you observe yourself, the more you know thyself. The more you know thyself, the more self-aware you become. And then it all works.
And it's interesting, Janet, because I've known in my life there are things that I'm more, pieces or areas of my life where I'm more awake and aware, and other parts where I slip back into asleepness. And so I guess it's just that constant journey of trying to live that lifestyle where you're awake more, more and more of the time, and less asleep, and more awake to yourself and knowing yourself. Why is it that sometimes, because I've seen this with even friends or family, where you'll start to get an awareness but then slip back into not awareness? Why does that come about?
Because we're human, and which is really the answer, but it's because we have this mind, and the mind has the ruts of patterns. And those are deeply rooted patterns of thought process and behaviors and reactions and past, if you will, karmas or experiences or whatever you want to call them. They're just deeply rooted. And so we fall back into it. And that's why I say that this is a 24-hour, 7 days a week, 365 way of living. So that's why it happens. And when it happens, rather than judge ourselves, rather than say, oh my gosh, I'm just this terrible bad thing, that's just the way it is. There's, okay, now it's time for me to learn how to go through this, mean boss that I really always flip out and get that mad over. It's going to be a different experience this time. I'm going to be aware of my feelings. So don't judge them, just be aware of them and let them flow through.
Yeah.
And then bring yourself back to center. So just like be your own best friend. So it's okay, Janice, that you have this cruddy feeling about this relative, because now you can just let that go. And now we're going to, bring back my center back in, because we always need to be centered and balanced, right? In a sport, tennis, we come back to center. We always come back to center, get grounded, come back to center, come back to heart, and then go again. So get rid of the judgment and just use it as like a mini learning.
I love that description, because I've gone through experiences where I feel like this is the end, and you're flipping out. But then when I start to get aware that I'm flipping out more because of fear and what I think could happen, aka the future stuff I'm making up in my mind. It
was Mark Twain that said, "My greatest worries never happen." Right? So. And also about living in the present moment. If we're worried about, oh my God, it's going to happen, then we're not in present moment. In present moment, we do our duty. We figure out what I need to do for the future, and I do that. But then I let go, and I be right here, right now, just letting all the other worries and the old hurts, or the old patterns. That's how the old patterns come in, because we're not in present moment. Present moment doesn't have that. That was something in the past.
Wow.
Be where you are.
Yeah, I love that. There was a funny thing that a lecturer said recently at a lecture where he talked about how humans fret over the future. He said, you don't see a bunch of squirrels and animals hiding outside of 7-Eleven thinking how they're going to do a big heist of all the food because they're scared that they're going to starve tomorrow, because animals don't think like that. Animals are like in the present. We're the ones that think of either the future or the past and dwell in it instead of just staying in the present.
Yeah, yes.
Well, Janice, it's been so educational and great wisdom that you've shared here today. I don't want anyone to leave about finding out where they can get your awesome books and find out more about you. Share that with them.
Well, the easiest way is, of course, my website, which is janicefletcher.com, JANICE Fletcher.com. And at that website, you'll find everything. There are 2 books there, Wisdom from the Inner Teacher, Turning Ahas into Owl Moments, which stands for my work, Optimal Wisdom Learning. And my last book, which is called Teach with Spirit, The Teacher's Inward Journey Guide, which is a handbook, which, as I said, could be live with spirit. Anybody could buy it and use it. It walks you through scenarios and examples, and then you actually rewrite your definition of what spirit is, and it moves you from the intellect into the experiential part of experiencing and walking with spirit and listening to it. So those are the 2 books. I do all sorts of consulting and training and speaking and keynotes and so on. So whatever anybody might need, they can come find me there.
Great. So they can work with you individually. You are taking clients at the moment.
Well, I do everything. Yes. I mean, most of the time it's done in workshops, but I speak every message that I come to, whether it's a business. My owl moment will get in there. My 6-step process I will teach. My Live with Spirit message gets in there. So you can have me speak about, whatever, but then those messages get in there because I found in my last book, and I tell the story of it, that I finally discovered after all this big, long career and all these things that I've done of what my true vocation was. I thought that I was an educator, was this, was that, I was a speaker trainer. No, I'm just an inspirer. That's who I am. That's what I'm here for, is to inspire. So for whatever it is, that's what will come through, whatever you ask me to do. That's just the way it works.
Yeah, and to realize, everyone, all the folks out there, regardless if you're an educator or a teacher, you can take these lessons, these owl moments, optimal wisdom learning, and apply it to your own life. Because I know for me, looking back, there's been so many wonderful aha moments, and I want to keep having them and keep growing and staying in center and in present moment so I can really serve the world. And if we all do that, we're going to have a pretty fab world. But, I want to thank you again, Janice, for coming and sharing your great wisdom and gifts today on Savvy Central Radio.
Well, thank you very much again for the opportunity. And the world is always great depending on our attitude.
That's right. Thank you, Janice. You have an awesome day.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Your business, your dream. How to have the business you love, the life you want, and the financial freedom you desire. Sign up today at yourbusinessyourdream.com.